From the front lines of the military to the front lines of business, this is Military to Management. I'm your host, Eamon. Each episode, we uncover how veterans are translating discipline, leadership, and mission-first values into success in today's corporate world. Hey, Bob. Thanks for joining the Military to Management podcast. I know you have a ton of experience speaking throughout the country with some of the amazing things you've done, and thank you for taking the time to talk to me today. Let's start off with a little bit about your military experience and what you were doing in the military. Tell us about that.
Sure, Eamon, great to be with you. I appreciate the invite. I'm happy to support this cause. There's a lot of good information out there that needs to be translated to all those Marine soldiers, airmen who are now transitioning, looking for their next chapter in life. So I'm honored to talk to you today. I went to Iona College, now Iona University, and that was up in New Rochelle, New York. And I was commissioned in 1987 upon graduation from college. Didn't know what I wanted to do at the time, but I ended up following the path of aviation. And I was blessed enough to be an attack helicopter pilot. I flew the AH-1W, the whiskey model, as my primary platform. Greatest job in the world. Obviously, you're flying around, you're blowing up stuff, you're getting more bullets, you're going out to blow stuff up. For a young man, there is no greater job than that. So during my time, I deployed Desert Shield, Desert Storm. 1993, we went on 2-4 Mu, and we went back to the Persian Gulf, and we ended up in Somalia, Africa. When I came back from that, it was one of those transition points. Do I stay or do I go? My original commitment was up, but I loved the Corps and the mission and what I was doing. I decided to stay. And they sent me to Camp Pendleton, California for a few years to be a Cobra flight instructor, off to New York again to be a recruiter. And then I was blessed in 1998 to be selected to fly with Marine Helicopter Squadron 1, HMX-1. The president at the time was President Bill Clinton. And it's like going back to college. You start there. It's a 4-year commitment to go to HMX-1. And you're a freshman, a sophomore, a junior, and a senior. You work your way up. And I worked my way up to be a co-pilot for the president and a pilot in command for Vice President Gore at the time. During my last year there, the Bush administration was coming into office, and I was asked by the squadron to go up to the White House to work for the White House Military Office Airlift Operations. No more flying, suit and tie. You're up there on the White House campus representing the Marine Corps, and you're supporting the president's logistics tail everywhere he goes in the world. That, to me, was the pinnacle of my career. I was a major at the time, and I was loving every minute of it. I was, in the West Wing, and you're getting briefed in the Situation Room, and you're doing all those things that you just can't believe as a Marine. You get to be that close to the seat of power. But from there, and I have a 9/11 story that we can talk about at some point today if you want to. But from there, I went to Naval Post Grad School, back to the Pentagon, served 4 years as the program manager for the Navy and Marine Corps Flying Hour program. Everything in our inventory that flies needs dollars, maintenance, training hours, combat hours, and we were the ones budgeting for all those requirements. And I retired in 2007.
Amazing. Not many people get to experience that type of military career. Could you briefly tell us about the 9/11 story, because it's incredible, and anybody listening to this can absolutely look it up and look you up. But if you want to briefly walk us through that and some of the lessons you learned, after that, and then also in your time in the military.
You bet. On 9/11, like I was explaining, that logistics tail for the president. Everywhere he goes in the world, he needs limousines, helicopters, snipers, doctors, phones. He needs the equipment. So when he gets off Air Force One, we're there waiting for him. We've been there 3 or 4 days. We know where the hospitals are, the primary and alternate routes, the helicopter landing zones. We're fully rehearsed and ready to support the leader of the free world. And I was responsible for that logistics tail, that package that went to Sarasota, Florida. So I'm monitoring the president's events in Sarasota. I'm back in the Eisenhower building adjacent to the West Wing, We had our 8 o'clock morning meeting on September 11th. Everything was going fine. The president was at the M.E. Booker Elementary School. He was going to do his academic agenda when, you remember, 8:46 the North Tower was struck. Then at 9:03 the South Tower was struck. 9:37 the Pentagon was hit, and at 9:45, for the second time in American history, we ordered the White House evacuated. Everybody left. We're going to the alternate sites. I grabbed my boss, who was an Air Force full bird colonel. I said, I can't leave. President Bush is not coming back. Wherever they're going to take him, he's going to need that package, those snipers, doctors, helicopters, and phones. And he said, you can't stay here. Go across the street, go into the White House, underground, inside the President's Emergency Operations Center. We call it the PEOC, the bunker under the White House, and do logistics. What's really important for your listeners is I can't tell you how to get to the bunker. I can't tell you how deep it is, how thick the walls are, but I'm allowed to tell you the bunker exists. When I got down there at 9:52, 7 minutes after the White House was ordered evacuated, the first person I ran into was Vice President Cheney's military aide. He was an Air Force major, a colleague, a friend of mine. And I went running up to him and said, hey, Tom, I'm here to do logistics. I'll stay out of your way. Bunch of military members doing their job down there, taking notes, answering the phones. And he said, Bob, I need you to forget logistics. Answer the phones. They're ringing off the hook. So I ran around and I found an empty cubicle. There was an empty desk. The phone was ringing. I put my planning kit down. I picked up the phone, like I said, at about 9:52, 9:53 in the morning. And it was from the upstairs situation room, now telling me they're tracking another hijacked airplane south of Pittsburgh, inbound Washington, D.C. So I turned to tell that to Tom, the military aide, and who's standing this close to me but Vice President Cheney. Then right behind him was his wife Lynn and Dr. Rice, our national security advisor, her deputy Stephen Hadley, Norma Mineta, the Secretary of Transportation. Everyone who was upstairs was now evacuated into the bunker, coming over to my console to hear about this new hijacked aircraft. Eamon, it was the most incredible thing. I reported that to the Vice President. He turned away from me. Up on the wall down there are 3 black boxes. They're landlines, speaker phones. First person he asked for, get me the Herndon, Virginia command center for the FAA. The supervisor's name was Rick. He came up in the network, and the Vice President asked him, Rick, I was told we have another hijacked airplane somewhere south of Pittsburgh. Can you confirm that for me? Without hesitation, Mr. Vice President, that aircraft is not talking. It's not squawking a transponder code, giving our air traffic controllers airspeed, altitude, and direction information. It's way off course. So that's a hijacked aircraft. Next thing you know, he's looking at the second speaker box, looking for Donald Rumsfeld, who was our Secretary of Defense. He's the only other person besides the president that can give offensive, lethal instructions to the U.S. military. Any of us can defend ourselves, but if we're going to go offensive and cross a border, kill a terrorist, wipe out an army, it comes from the National Command Authority, made up of the president and the Secretary of Defense. But Donald Rumsfeld wasn't there. Literally, with the impact of Flight 77 on the Pentagon, his desk literally shook, and he ran outside in the parking lot to assist with evacuating the wounded at the Pentagon. We had the president trying to get airborne in Sarasota, Florida, a Secretary of Defense lost among thousands at the Pentagon. There was nobody at the helm of our national military command and control structure to tell our pilots what the rules of engagement were. And just then, Vice President Cheney took charge, and talking to a one-star general in the National Military Command Center, he ordered 2 F-15s at Otis Air National Guard Base, Cape Cod. Let me know when they're airborne. Stand by to shoot this aircraft down. Next thing we heard, they were supersonic. They were closing in on United Flight 93. You're talking 300 miles. And they're going to, they're in weapons parameter in 8 minutes. They're rocking and rolling. And they are cleared hot, weapons free to engage. At 10:05, all the satellite radios blared to life. Aircraft down, 60 miles south of Pittsburgh, no survivors. It was like the air sucked out of the bunker, all eyes on the vice president. He turned around, he walked right over to me and said, "Major, for the congressional investigation, I need you to state your full name." So from Major Bob Darling to the vice president to the National Military Command Center, we just shot that plane down. I really need to talk to the president. And while we were trying to reach the president, those same fighters reported back the F-15s never fired. United Flight 93 was on the ground in Shanksville, Pennsylvania when they got there. Heroes, ordinary passengers, Tom Burnett, Todd Beamer, 38 others, formed into the cockpit, hands-on terrorists, but ultimately that plane rolled upside down and hit straight down in Shanksville, Pennsylvania. That was my day, Eamon. I was there for 24 hours doing that type of interaction. Capture it in my book that I was allowed to write. The National Security Council gave me permission to write. And I travel really the country, even today, from 2010 to today, telling everybody about not only this experience, but the importance of honing your crisis leadership, decision-making, communication skills. Whether you're, a Marine down there on your fire team, or you're a corporate titan, it's not just about the bottom line. It's about being able to make courageous decisions with no time, very little information, and having the courage to follow through. Reserving the right to make another decision when more information becomes available, but not becoming paralyzed with the lack of information, and having the courage to make the call.
Absolutely an incredible story. Thank you for sharing it. Thank you for everything you did that day as well. And thank you to those courageous passengers, that prevented, those F-15s from having a fire. Bob, obviously, you talk about that story a lot, and there are so many lessons that you probably have taken from that, and also your time in the Marines. If you could distill it down to a couple key lessons, I know you just talked about it a little bit, but for those listeners who might be thinking about getting out of the military soon, what are some of the key takeaways and values you took from your time in service that have continued to serve you well post-military service?
It's a great question. And listen, the most important thing you learned and I learned during our time in the military, and we didn't even realize we learned it. It was just ingrained in us, and everything we did during, whether it's tactical training or strategy or planning, whatever's going on, is we learned how to compartmentalize. When things are going wrong in your life, what is it the Marine Corps taught you how to do? Eliminate the noise, focus on the mission, and start coming up with courses of action. When you come up with a course of action that makes the most sense, have the courage to act and follow through and make the decision to do that. Even when you transition out of the service, you're going to go into corporate America, you're going to start your own companies, you're going to raise your own families, you're going to do all those things, and you're never going to forget that skill set that you have. When chaos erupts, you're not going to be the ones that run to the exit. You're going to be the ones that take a deep breath, take a step back, and say, what's important to me right now, and what is it I can push off because it has no bearing on what needs to be handled. Military members were trained. We were trained in course of action development. We were trained in compartmentalization, and you have to leverage that skill from now on, no matter what you choose to do.
Incredible analysis, advice, and you're 100% correct. That's served me well personally on the corporate side of things, and obviously, it's served you well, and everybody in the military has that capacity. Bob, can you walk us through your transition from being a service member to the civilian side of things, and what that looked like? Obviously, you had very high leverage, high impact roles, especially on 9/11. So it might be it's a little bit different for you than from the run-of-the-mill service member, but I'm sure there's some lessons from your transition that would be applicable. Can you kind of walk us through that?
Listen, just like everybody else, my transition wasn't easy. I came out of the Pentagon. I was a program manager. I'm a lieutenant colonel in the Marine Corps. I'm highly respected. I have people working for me. And next thing you know, I'm interviewing with somebody that's younger than me, somebody that's going to be my boss, that is 5 to 7 years younger at least. And I'm trying to convince them on why they need to hire me. And meanwhile, I'm looking at this young man or woman, and you're saying, what have you done in your life besides go to school and start in the workforce, and now you're going to be my boss? And you got to learn humility, you got to breathe, you got to realize this is not our environment, this is their environment, and you're transitioning into their environment. So I ended up getting my first job as I guess I was a director of business development for a company that was doing biometrics back to the Army and the Marine Corps. They were selling palm readers and fingerprint and iris scanners and things like that. Very, very different. First of all, emails with no header. Hey, do this, need it done by noon. No hello, no goodbye, no this is who I am, this is what I'm asking for, appreciate your time. I found it very direct. I didn't know who these people were. I was like, this is rude. This is not how we grew up. And you realize this is a whole different culture. And you're trained that we want to take charge and be a leader and be value add to whatever we're doing. And yet corporate America sees you as this is the size of your box, and this is all I need you to do is to stay in that box and don't do anything else. We feel very underutilized, very unappreciated, and we have a hard time transitioning to that culture. Everyone does. And that's why they always say, yeah, you're probably going to leave that job in its first year because it's not meeting your expectations in any way, shape, or form. And then you're going to move on to another job and another job. You're going to find your sea legs. I left that job, went to an IT company. I lasted 3 years there, left that job, and decided I needed to be my own boss. I had too much in the tank, too much of a desire to take on a difficult mission. And I all of a sudden went to figure out what I needed to do to run my own companies. The Marine Corps had prepared me for that, and that was my calling, and I've been doing that ever since.
So many good lessons there, and honestly, I relate to a lot of that. The first job I had out of the Marines did not hit my expectations either, and that's a theme when I've been talking to people on this podcast that a lot of people have. So that's a great thing for people to know and to expect. It is different. So can you kind of talk about, you spent a year, then 3 years, and then you transitioned into running your own company. I'm sure you had a bunch of lessons learned throughout those different experiences. Could you kind of talk us through, like, what were some of the key lessons you learned as you transitioned into running your own company, or maybe that you're still learning as you run your own company?
Again, that's a spot on, great question. Listen, you have to look back at your time in the service and realize you know thousands of people. You may not remember who they are, but you've touched a lot of lives. And you have a lot of capability and a lot of passion for mission accomplishment. But you have to reflect on that. What is it you want to do? If you don't have purpose, if you don't have something that's going to wake you up in the morning, get you to PT, get dressed, and go to work, you're in the wrong field, and you won't last in that field. You'll get bored, and you'll walk away from that one too, and you'll feel like you're getting nowhere in life as the years are ticking by. Find out what you did in the Corps, or find out what your colleagues and friends are doing. Find out what excites you every day. Ask questions. Go to conferences. Take notes. Look at podcasts. Go and get in touch with your veteran assistance programs that are offered out there, and just be on a fact-finding mission. And you're going to find somebody feeding the homeless, or somebody providing equipment to third world nations. Other companies are doing aviation related, space related, something that's going to get you excited, and you're going to get back in and joining the team. What I did is I went back to that program manager as a flying hour program guy. I convinced the Navy and the Marine Corps that I ran that budget better than anybody else. I can support that RO, that resource officer. just the way I was supported. And I became a subcontractor to a bigger prime. And I was doing exactly what I did in the Marine Corps before I left. I had comfort, I had respect, I was back in my area of responsibility where I could add value, find purpose, and grow my company. Anything other than that, I just could not get motivated to do anything, and I felt like I was wandering.
Amazing. Like, again, great advice and perspective. Can you walk us through, so you started as a subcontractor. I know you've got some other stuff going on now. Can you kind of walk us through your evolutions to what you're working on now?
Sure. I took that company as far as I could. It was called Quantitative Analytics, supporting the Navy and Marine Corps. I could only grow it so much before I just couldn't win another contract. I couldn't get out of the thumb of you, if you will, of the prime. I was being too controlled. So I decided that I was done in that chapter. I sold that company. The National Security Council approved my book to be published in 2010. And then I decided to try to get into public speaking, to run around and not just tell the story of 9/11, but to tell the leadership side, the decision-making side, communications side. My purpose became to help small businesses like the one I was running and others become more resilient. Because the government eventually shows up, but they don't show up in time for small business. They focus on making sure super large companies get bailouts. But the small and medium-sized businesses, we don't survive when we have a critical event go on. So I ran off to Harvard for 7 days, got certified in crisis leadership, came back, found a speaker agency, started to tell my story, and everybody loves a good story, but they also want to know what's in it for them. What leadership traits can you impart on me besides telling me a great story? So then I had to work on my delivery, work on my content, figure out who my audience is, all those things you learned in the service. Know your audience, know your information, know your content. And I did that. And I've been publicly speaking now for 15 years. I started RJD Press, where my book and my crisis leadership training resides. And just recently, we spun off to form another company in addition to RJD Press called Flash Emergency Management, where I write business continuity plans and do tabletop exercises and help those leaders of small and medium-sized businesses handle risk. Identify your risk, tell me what you're going to do about it to mitigate it. You're going to include all your employees. We all want to be on the value add team. Don't discount anyone. Everything I learned in the Corps, I'm now applying back in Flash Emergency Management to help small companies handle critical events.
Amazing. So you started doing speaking, and then you spun off into another addition to the value add chain. How's that going right now? What's working well for your team at Flash? Like what are some of the wins that you've got, and the progress that you've had over since you've started it?
A lot of painful lessons. The public speaking was going so great. Next thing you know, you started this laggard that you're trying to grow now, and you thought because you're passionate about it, everybody should be passionate about it. And what I was finding out is small and medium-sized businesses have zero margin. They would rather be a tree in the forest and hope nothing happens to them than to spend money they may or may not have on resilience. Everything has got to go to operations, the next sale, the next bottom line event. And I was trying to get them to be more prepared, and they're like, I'd rather take the risk. I couldn't convince them. It was really going very, very slow. Then I had to pivot again, and what I ended up doing was finding out what insurance companies demand and require of small and medium-sized businesses. And now I approach insurance companies and say, this is who I am, this is what I do, I can make your clients better. Will you pay or offset the cost of resilience and readiness for your clients? We call it left to bang. Make them more prepared now so they have less claims later. And it's been so far, knock on wood, hugely accepted. We're finding insurance company after insurance company that says, we would like you to come in and develop a risk management program, not just for us, but for all of our clients. And they're giving me access to their client list. So now I found a way, I don't have to find my own customers. I find the insurance company who feeds me their customers, and those customers who want a discount or want to be better or want to take advantage of the insurance company paying, the majority of the bill, are now becoming my clients, and they're my clients forever. So this new pivot is working out great.
Incredible. Sounds like you've got a great flywheel. You talk to the insurance companies, they feed you clients, you're helping the insurance companies get better. It's a win-win-win. Are you, obviously we hear a bunch, there's changes in all industries right now with new technology, and AI, cyber attacks, things like that. Do you see any big trends that could affect small, medium-sized businesses, like from a risk perspective? Like, can you talk to us about that? Like, what are some trends or possible issues that you're seeing?
Yeah, this is really very important for your listeners. We learned this in the Marine Corps, you and I. Other people learned it in the Air Force and the Army. We used to have a saying, and I don't mean to offend your listeners, but we used to say, embrace the suck. That when things go bad, it's inevitable, and you can fight it or you can bend it to your will and make it an opportunity. And that's what's happening in business today. AI is here. AI is not going away. There are so many changes now coming down the pike where AI is it's not eliminating jobs. It's eliminating those people that don't want to embrace the jobs AI is creating. And you have got to pivot, always be willing to pivot. You got to learn AI, come up with those agent type questions, those bot type questions, and use it to your advantage in your business. Use it to go find new customers. Use it to train your workforce to be more efficient. Find a way to make whatever is coming at you work for you. The longer you resist it, the more pressure you're under, and eventually it'll run you over. So embrace the suck. It's happening.
Amazing. Where do you want to see yourself and your companies in the next 6 to 12 months?
6 to 12 months is today. That's really short term. I want to keep doing what I'm doing. I want to sign up more insurance companies. I want to help more and more small and medium-sized businesses. I use AI in my business. For example, I used to write a business continuity plan from scratch. I'd come in and interview you. You'd tell me everything about your business, who are your suppliers, your IT network, and I would have to fat finger, this report back to you to make sense. AI is now helping me. For example, whatever industry you're in, AI already has so much information on that industry. So if you know your location, I know your external risk, your weather type risk. If I know your industry, I can get the most common risks associated with that industry. I can present you with those risks. We can agree on those. You can check this one and discard that one and prioritize this one. I can produce a plan that used to take me 30 days, 3 hours because of AI. And now I'm not doing one client a month or 2 clients a month. I can do 10 to 20 clients a month just by doing a 1-hour interview with them and using AI, going back and interviewing them and say, do you agree, disagree? Is this your priority or not your priority? And we produce a plan which they're excited about. And then I introduce them to training and tabletop and communications and so many other things. So what I would tell those folks out there is think about all the things you learn. Think about what drives you. Where's your purpose and passion? And go out there and don't get discouraged on anything. Bend it to your will. Find a way to accomplish the mission. Use everything that you have at your disposal. Use your network. Use your fellow veterans. Get help, be humble, take notes, interview people, and have fun growing your business and taking care of your family. It shouldn't be a grind anymore. You've done your time. The rest of this now should be this is good. This is creating opportunities for my family and I, not just to be secure, but to go have fun as well. Really, turn it into an optimistic chapter in your life for sure.
Amazing. Bob, if you could tell a service member who's thinking about transitioning in the next year or so, or maybe somebody who just transitioned, one takeaway or one piece of advice on how to optimize that transition, what would it be?
Is breathe. Breathe. And here's why I tell you that. We all said this to our wives. I think when I retire, I'm going to take 30, 60 days off. I'm going to go play golf. I think I'll PT. Maybe I'll go fishing. And you know what? After 2 hours after you retire, my wife and other people's family go, hey, what are you going to do? How are we going to get paid? What's your plan? And they start putting so much pressure on you to take a job. I want you to breathe. I want you to reflect on your incredible time in the service. What was it that you did that you liked? What didn't you like? What type of leadership style do you remember that you want to embrace and you'll never ever emulate again? You've seen good and bad in everything you've done. And then I want you to kind of smile and say, I got a clean sheet of paper in front of me. I know what I love to do. I'm in aviation. I'm going down the aviation path. Who is doing something in aviation that I want to embrace? Is it Northrop Grumman with the new drones or B-21, the stealth bomber? Or is it a small drone company that maybe I can go and add value to help them grow that business? Figure out who you are, what you want to do, and give it a shot. Reserve the right to change your mind. I came into your company, I looked at it. It looked like it was exciting. I found out there's not much going on. I really don't think there's place for me to grow. It's okay. Put your papers in and move on. Go to another job fair and another job fair. Don't beat yourself up. It's time to breathe. It's time to reflect. And it's time to chase what you think you want to do. And you reserve the right to pivot all along that path until you find your sweet spot.
You said some really great things there. I mean, for me personally, and I know I've talked to a lot of veterans who went and took a job right away, because they wanted that next paycheck, and that's certainly a factor. But really taking the time to think about it and knowing that you can be flexible. Once you start your own company, it's a little bit different. You have assets, that you've invested into it. But if you're taking a job, you have the right to interview that job and make sure it's the right fit. So that's absolutely sensational advice. Bob, if any listeners want to look you up or see what you're doing, like, what's the best way for them to find you or learn more about you or your companies?
Great. Listen, I have a website for public speaking. If you're interested in your organization having me come out and tell you the events of 9/11 from the White House underground bunker perspective, you're not only going to enjoy the story, but you're going to get some real leadership tidbits of information that you can use professionally or personally. Darling.com, no periods, Robert, the letter J, darling.com. The book is available on Amazon or my website. If you need help in business continuity and you want to train your workforce and you want to become that resilient organization that can handle that next chaotic event or critical event, then you're going to reach out to me at flash-em for emergencymanagement.com. Flash-em, there's a dash in between em.com. I'm happy to come out. We'll talk about it. We'll make it affordable. We'll find out who your insurance company is. We'll do that route too to try to get you a discount. And you'll be the leader that people want to follow up the highest hill because you put people first. You trained them, you put them on a response team, you gave them a mission, they understand your threats. So now when they see something or hear something, they're going to report back to you because they understand their purpose is not just to deliver on the bottom line, but their purpose is to help this company survive through crisis. And I think that you'll find retention goes up, profits go up, and your leadership status goes up. It's just a win-win.
Amazing. Any parting words of wisdom? Anything else that you want to share with the listeners, Bob?
I just want to congratulate you for what you're doing. This podcast, you and I wish we had it. You know, when I transitioned in 2007, there was nothing like this. And I had to go and I went to all the veteran events and I took notes and did all those things. But having information like this and people like you who are willing to help those find their path earlier. You know, most of us struggled for a few years, wasted 3 years, 5 years. You're helping people find that passion and that path right away is an invaluable service. I thank you for your service, and I thank you for what you're doing for so many veterans today. So congratulations.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you for the kind words. And Bob, thank you for taking your time this morning to talk to me and to our listeners. Appreciate you again. Semper Fidelis.
Semper Fidelis, my friend.
Thank you to our guest for sharing their journey from the military to corporate leadership. We'll be back soon with more stories of veterans proving that success doesn't end with a uniform. It begins a new mission. This is Military to Management with your host, Eamon.